So here we are going to see some very basic Python programs with the knowledge of Python, what we have studied in this chapter. So now let us start. This program is going to convert boiling point and freezing point of water in degrees Celsius to degree Fahrenheit. Okay, and the conversion formula is this. If you provide temperature in degrees Celsius, you just have to multiply it with 9 divided by 5 and then you have to add with 32. You will get the corresponding temperature in Fahrenheit. So now let us see how we can write a Python program to convert degree Celsius to degree Fahrenheit using this formula. You can see here after hash, I have written plain English. This is just for your understanding, right? So here you can read to convert degree Celsius to degree Fahrenheit for two values. And after each of the statements in Python, I have put a hash and written the explanation for this Python statement. So when you write your program, you don't have to write this part. Okay, because that doesn't belong to Python. These are comments. We have already studied that in the previous sessions. So everything starting with hash will be ignored by the Python interpreter, right? So you don't have to see that. So when you actually code, you have to write only the statement before the hash, right? Your program will work properly. So now let me explain to you how it works. In this program, we are trying to convert only two temperature values in Celsius to Fahrenheit. Okay, so we are trying to convert 100 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. So first I will store 100 to a variable called boil. Okay, so now if I write the variable over here, the value of this variable boil is 100. Now after that, I will copy 0 to another variable called freeze. So I'll write freeze over here and the value that is stored inside it is 0. And in the next statement, we are trying to convert the boil temperature in degrees Celsius to corresponding temperature in Fahrenheit, okay, using the same formula. So now the value of boil is 100. So 100 into 9 divided by 5 plus 32, whatever that value is, when we run the program, we will understand what is the value. That value will be stored into nboil. So now we should understand nboil has degree Fahrenheit temperature equal to the boiling point in Celsius, which is 100 degrees Celsius. Now in the next statement, you can see we are using the same formula, but this time we are converting 0 degrees Celsius, which is available inside this variable. You can see this is 0. So now the value will be 0 into 9 divided by 5 plus 32. So that will be stored into nfreeze. So now this nfreeze will have corresponding temperature in Fahrenheit for 0 degrees Celsius. In the next statement, I'm going to print the output. Okay, so there I will print boiling point of water in Fahrenheit is equal to, because you see this entire line is put inside single quotes. You can also use double quotes. Okay, Python works the same way with single quotes or double quotes. But if you start with a single quote, you always have to end with a single quote. If you start with a double quote, you can end with a double quote. So whatever you write inside this single quote, the same thing will be printed in the output. So in the output, it will print boiling point of water in Fahrenheit is equal to, until here will be printed as the same sentence that you have given inside the print statement. And after that, you have put a comma. Now here you can see I have written nboil. This is not inside quotes. So the value of nboil will be printed. Now whatever value you evaluated here, that will be printed over there. So assume that if for 100 degrees Celsius, the corresponding Fahrenheit, which is stored inside nboil, is x degree Fahrenheit, then x will be printed over here. A number will come over here. So when we run the program, we will see that. Now in the last print statement, you will print in the output freezing point of water in Fahrenheit is equal to. Now after that, it will print the value of nfreeze that you have obtained over here. And the next line also will be printed out. So freezing point of water in Fahrenheit equal to y. So now let us run this program. So now our program is ready. Let me run it. So you can see the boiling point of water in Fahrenheit is 212 degree Fahrenheit, and freezing point of water in Fahrenheit is 32. Now, even though this program works perfectly, there is a small problem or disadvantage with this program. Now, what is that? This program is static, which means that how many times I run it, always it will create the same output. You can see always the output is 212 and 32. Now, why it is coming like that? Because our input is fixed. You can see always the value that is stored inside boil is 100 and the value that is stored inside freeze is 0, and then we are using this boil and freeze to find the value of n boil and n freeze, and then we are printing the output of n boil and n freeze. So how many times you run this program, the output will never change. This program has only one purpose. It will convert 100 degrees Celsius to corresponding Fahrenheit. It will convert 0 degrees Celsius to corresponding Fahrenheit. But what we can change this program a little bit so that the program can accept any input value from the keyboard as degrees Celsius, and your program will convert that to corresponding Fahrenheit. So each time when your program runs, you can give different input, and based on that input, the corresponding Fahrenheit will be calculated. So your program becomes more interactive, your program becomes much more useful. Now for that, you have to accept input from the keyboard. Now we have already studied that with input function, we can accept the value from the keyboard as a string, and we have also studied that we can convert that string into integer by using explicit type conversion function called int. So in the next program, we will see how to do it. So let us continue now. So this is the same program. It will accept an input in degrees Celsius, and then the program will calculate the corresponding temperature in Fahrenheit, and it will print the result. So here we are using the same formula. You can see here. Once you provide the temperature in Celsius, you will multiply by 9 divided by 5 plus 32. You will get the result as temperature in Fahrenheit, and then you will print it. So here you see the first statement is the difference. So here we are calling the input function to first print, enter the temperature in Celsius, and then wait until the user enters a number in the keyboard. So now let's assume that user entered 100. So now this 100 is accepted by this input function as a string. Now we have to convert that either to integer or to a float. It is better to convert to a float because float has much better precision than integer. So here I am converting this 100 into a floating point number. So the number will become 100.0, and after that this floating point number is stored into variable cell. Okay, so cell stands for Celsius, and after that you use the same formula, right? So here it will be 100.0 into 9 divided by 5 plus 32. You will get the corresponding result, and the result will be stored into variable var. Okay, it stands for the Fahrenheit, and after that my first print statement will print degrees Celsius equal to whatever value you have entered for Celsius. So here it is 100, and the next statement will print degree in Fahrenheit is equal to whatever value you get after this expression evaluates in var will be printed over here. So now let us run this program. So now the program is ready. I will execute it. So now you see our program is asking the user to enter the temperature in Celsius. So whatever number you enter here, that will be converted to Fahrenheit. So that is what I told you. This program is better than the previous program, because in the previous program, we can never give an input to our program. It always calculated the Fahrenheit equivalent to 100 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Celsius. So in this program, if you actually want to find the Fahrenheit equivalent to 100 degrees Celsius, you can enter 100 here. You press enter. So the results are converted to float. That is why it is coming 100.0 and 212.0. So that is the Fahrenheit equivalent for 100 degrees Celsius. Now let me run the program again. This time I want to see what is the corresponding Fahrenheit for 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, so when I press enter, you can see the result is coming as 32. And I can run the program again. This time I will enter 45. So now we are trying to find out what is the equivalent Fahrenheit temperature for 45 Celsius. So here you can see the result comes as 113. So now our program is much more interactive. You can see here it can accept any value in Celsius and convert that to Fahrenheit. So the difference here is that we take input from the user using our input function. So now let us go to the next program. Now in this program we are trying to swap two numbers using a third variable. Now what do you mean by swapping two numbers? For example, if I have a number n1 and I have another number n2, assume that the value of n1 is 10 and value of n2 is 5. So if you want to swap the number of n1 and n2, value 10 should be given to n2 and value 5 should be given to n1, right? So after swapping, n1 should have 5 and n2 should have 10. In this program, we are allowed to use a third variable to store a number while the swapping happens. In the next program, we will study how to swap two numbers without using a third variable. So right now we have the liberty to use the third variable. So let us see how it works. So when the program starts, it will ignore the first line because it starts with a hash. Now the interpreter will come to the next line, and there you can see we have the input function, right? So in the output it will be printed enter first number, and then the input function will wait until the user gives an input. So assume that the user entered 10. So value 10 is copied into variable n1. So now n1 has value 10. Now interpreter will go to the next line. There also I have another input function. Now in the output terminal it will be printed enter second number, and then our input function will wait for the user to make an entry. So assume that I entered 5. So 5 will be stored into n2. So now n2 has 5. After that, I will just print in the output before swapping. So in the output, it will come a line before swapping. And in the next line, I will print the value of n1 and n2. So it will be printed number 1 equal to, so it will print like this, number 1 equal to value of n1. So what is the value of n1 now? 10. And after that, number 2 is equal to value of n2. So value of n2 is 5. So this is just to make sure that right now n1 has value 10 and n2 has value 5. So now we are going to swap them. Now to swap them, we are allowed to use a third variable. So the third variable that I'm going to use inside my program is called temp. Okay, so I will write it here, temp. So initially I will copy the value available in n1 into temp. So value of n1 is 10, so 10 will be copied into temp. After that, the value available in n2 will be copied into n1. So now the value of n2 is 5. So that will be copied into n1. So earlier 10 is removed and now n1 has value 5. Now in the next statement, the value of temp is copied to n2. So value of temp is 10 and now 10 is copied to n2. So 5 is removed. So now we can see n1 and n2 has swapped the value among themselves using the third variable temp. And after that, I will print after swapping. So that will come in the output. After swapping, okay, then the last print statement will print the value of number 1 equal to value of n1. So what is the current value of n1? It is 5. So that will be printed, and after that it will print number 2 is equal to value of n2. The current value of n2 is 10. So that will be printed. So here you can see the value of number 1 got copied to number 2. Value of number 2 got copied to number 1. So now let us run this program. Now our program is ready. Let me execute it. So it is asking for the first number. I will enter 10. Okay, I'll press enter. It is asking for the second number. I will enter 5 and press enter. Now you can see first it will print before swapping. Okay, and this is exactly how I have entered from the keyboard. So number 1 has value 10 and number 2 has value 5. After that, I swap the number using the temp variable, and finally you can see in this print statement it will print after swapping. So you can see here it is coming out, and you can see in the last print statement it is printing the value of n1, which is now 5, and value of n2 is 10. Now we can understand n1 and n2 has exchanged their value inside the program. So now let us see the next program where we are trying to swap numbers without using a temp variable. In this program, we are asked to swap two numbers, but this time we should not use a third variable. So naturally, when you see this question, we will think like now the program should be much more complicated than the previous one. But with Python, this is really simple, right? We can directly do this in one line. So I'll show you how to do that. I have two variables n1 and n2. So the first 4 lines is exactly like the previous program. So I'm not going to explain it again. When the first statement executes, I will enter value 10 and that will be stored into variable n1. So n1 has value 10. In the next statement, I will input 5 and 5 will be stored into n2. So n2 has value 5. And then I will print before swapping, and after that I'll print number 1 is equal to 10 because right now the value of n1 is 10 and number 2 is equal to 5. Okay, so now we are here. Now you see this is a simple technique which works in Python. So here you can write n1 comma n2 and after that you can assign what value should be given to n1 and what value should be given to n2. So you just have to invert the order over here. So what happens here is that the value of n2 will be moved to n1. So value of n2 will be moved to n1 and value of n1 will be moved to n2. So now value of n1 will move to n2. So you see swapping is done. And after that you can print the result, print after swapping. Now you print number 1 equal to n1. So right now the value of n1 is 5 and number 2 is equal to n2. Right now the value of n2 is 10. Without using a temp variable, we have just exchanged the value between n1 and n2. So now let us run this. So now let me execute our program. It is asking for the first number. You can enter any number. I'm just sticking to the same example that we have used to explain. Okay, so enter first number is 10, enter second number 5. And now we can see the last print statement. The value of number 1 is 5, which is n1, and value of number 2 is 10, which is n2. So here you can see the value have exchanged just by writing this one statement. Let us go to the next program. In this program, we are trying to find out the volume of a sphere by using the formula 4 by 3 pi r cube. Okay, and here you can understand to find the volume, you need a radius, right? Rest of the values we know. So in the first statement, we will try to collect the value for our radius. So I will call the input function. It will print enter the radius of a sphere and then it will wait for the input. If you are going to work only on integer numbers for radius, you can give here int. But if you want radius to be like 4.13 meter, something like that, then you have to use float here because you have to convert the string that input reads to float and store into R. Right now, let us assume that we will be using only integer numbers for our radius. Okay, so we require only int. So once this statement runs, you can enter your radius. So it should be an integer number, maybe 5, 6 or something like that. Assume that I enter 4. So input will read 4 as a string. And now this string 4 will be given to the integer function. Now integer function will convert the string into integer 4 and 4 will be copied to variable R. And in the next statement, we will calculate the volume. You can see it is straight application of formula 4 by 3 into the value of pi is 3.14 into, then we have to multiply R 3 times, okay, R into R into R. Now I have just written it for you to understand it better because this is the straightforward simple way, but this is a crude way of programming. We have already studied an exponent operator which works with 2 stars. Right, so if you write r star star 3, that is equivalent to r raised to 3. So you can replace this r into r with r star star 3. It will give the same result. Now when you study the subsequent chapters, we will study there is a new function called POW which can also do the same job. So right now you don't have to know that. So at least you don't have to write r into r into r. You can use the exponent operator. Now after that, in the last print statement, you will output volume of the sphere colon, and then it will print the value of volume, whatever is evaluated by running this mathematical expression. So now let us run the program. So now let me execute it. My program is now asking for the radius of the sphere. So I will enter 4, and you can see the volume of sphere is calculated as 267.94 something. Now I told you you can change this r into r with the actual exponent operator. So you have to put one more star and 3. So this is equivalent to r raised to 3. So I'll save the program, I'll run again, and this time if I give the same radius as 4, you can see I get the same result. Okay, so this is the better way. I would always recommend you to use this exponent operator if you want to find the power of some variable. For example, if you have a special requirement where you have to raise r to 10, you cannot go on writing r into r into r into r into 10 times, right? So that's a bad programming. So it's always better to use the correct operator for the operation that we require. Now one last thing, if I want to find the volume of a sphere which has a radius of 4.13, can this program do that? So now let us try. So I will execute it again. Now program is asking to enter the radius. I will enter 4.13. Okay, so now I'll press enter. You can see we got an error. It is because of this int function. The problem here is that the input function accepted 4.13 as a string, and this 4.13 string is provided for the function int to convert 4.13 string to an integer. But when this int function tries to do that conversion, it is identifying that this is not an integer number, this is a floating point number. So integer cannot do the conversion. So that is why you are getting this error. Now to solve this problem, it's very easy. If you want to accept a floating point number, all you have to do here is to change it to float. So now 4.13 can be converted to a floating point number by this function, and that will be loaded into R. So now let me save the program and execute it once again. It will ask for the radius. Right now I can enter 4.13. Okay, so now if I press enter, you can see the volume is calculated with 4.13 as radius. Okay, because I have accepted the number as a floating point number. So based on your requirement, you have to decide whether I will accept the number as an integer or a float. Okay, so based on the question, you have to change that. So now let us continue. In this program, we will find the year when you will reach 100 years of age. So this program accepts two input. In the first statement, you have to enter your name. For example, if I enter the name as Ram, so that will be stored into variable name. And in the next statement, you have to enter your age. So if I enter my age as 20, so that will be stored into variable age. And after that, in the output, I will print hi with the value of variable name. So the variable name is having value Ram. So now in the output, you will see hi Ram. In the next print statement, it will print out the year you reach 100 is. So that will be printed. The year you reach 100 is with 2 exclamation marks. Now the control go to the next line. In the next statement, we actually calculate the year when Ram will reach 100 years of age. So this formula is very easy to understand. Right now the age of Ram is 20. You subtract 20 from 100, you will get 80. So which means that Ram has to live another 80 years starting from this year to reach 100 years. So this year is 2021. So now 80 will be added to it. So the result will be 2101. So at this year, Ram will celebrate his 100th birthday. So now 2101 will be copied to variable year, and after that I will print the years. So in the output it will be printed 2101. Okay, so now let us run this program. So our program is ready, so let me execute it. It asks for a name. Any name you can enter. I will enter name as Ram, and the age I will enter 20, and you can see it's printing hi Ram. The year you reach 100 is 2101. So with this, we'll wind up the session. In the next session, we will be starting with functions. So see you there. Bye.